Alright, so we are here at the review question 1. So I've copied the question here, and things you need to do for this question are firstly to prompt the user to enter 3 marks one at a time. After obtaining the 3 numbers of the marks, compute the average mark, and finally proceed to provide a grade based on the average mark. Okay, so the first step that we need to do is to declare variables for the 3 marks. Okay, so as we have seen earlier, we need to sort of know the data type. For marks, you can consider integer, but as we know, marks can also have a 0.5 in it. Sometimes you can get maybe a 0.5 mark for a particular question. So in that case, it is more feasible to declare them as floats. So for a float variable, we're going to declare 3 such variables. So we can call it mark 1, mark 2, and mark 3. Okay. And following that, we know that we are required to compute the average. Okay, so we can also declare a variable for that. I mean, you can put all of this in one line, it's one straight line as well, instead of breaking it up. But I just think it's a bit easier to see again that these are the input variables, and this is an output variable. Okay. So now we need to prompt the user to enter 3 marks one at a time. Okay, so let's do that. So printf. So I'm going to do a \n first. So I go to a new line, enter marks 1. Okay. And once I do this printf statement, I need to do a scanf. Okay. So in scanf, we need to do %f. Okay. And %f is because it's a float variable that we're trying to capture, and we need to put the ampersand sign before the variable name. Okay. So that is for mark 1. Okay. And I'm going to do a copy paste of that 3 times for the 3 different variables. Okay. So enter marks 1, marks 2, and marks 3. Okay. So I have to also remember to change this to 2 and 3. Okay. So when I execute these 3 statements, I each time prompt the user to enter a mark, followed by capturing it in the appropriate variable. Okay. So now that I've captured all 3 marks, I can proceed on to compute the average. Okay. So I'm going to say mark 1 plus mark 2 plus mark 3 divided by 3. Okay. And that will give me my average. And I can now do a printout. Okay. Of my average mark. The average mark is percentage. Okay, so since your float variable has decimal points, you can specify how many decimal points you want to print out. So in this case, for example, if I only want to have 2 decimal places, I put a .2f. Okay, and comma, and I put the variable name here. Okay, so let's just go on to test this out. Okay, what we've written so far. So let me save it and compile and run. Okay, so right now, where am I? You can see that I have executed this one and enter marks 1, and my cursor is there waiting. Why? Because I have a scanf statement. So whatever number I key in now will be captured and stored into mark 1 variable. Okay, so let's key in maybe 75. Now I'm enter marks 2. Okay, so I key maybe 1 and finally 97. Okay, and then it prints out the average mark for me. Okay, so we know that you can check the answer with the calculator, and you know that this is correct. Okay, so now that we have computed the average mark, okay, so we have done the first objective, complete the first objective, the second objective, and now the final one, which is to provide a grade based on the average mark. Okay, so to provide a grade, we need to do if-else sort of checking. Okay, so let's start off with the top or the highest grade first. So we know that if, for example, average is greater than or equal to 75, then we can say printf you got an A. Okay, something like that. Okay, so that is for the highest range. Okay, so for the highest range, you only need to check for one number. Okay, as long as I'm greater than or equal to 75, I say you got the highest grade, which is A. Now for the rest of the in-between grades, you are checking for a range of numbers. Okay, so to check a range of numbers, what we need to do is we need to use checks with conditional operators such as AND or OR. So in this case, I'm going to say if H is greater than equal to 65 and the other condition is H less than 75, then I fulfill this condition to get a B. Okay, so I say printf got a B. Okay, so what am I doing here? So I'm trying to check. Let me close this. Okay, I'm trying to check for two conditions here. First condition is H must be greater than equal to 65. The second condition is H must be less than 75. And the operator that is relating both of these together is the AND operator. So if I put an AND operator, means both condition 1 and condition 2 need to be fulfilled. Okay, so that is what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to check that I fulfill both the conditions here. Sorry, not H, average here. Okay, so let's go on to check the next condition for the grade T. So for grade T, what I need to do is I need to say that the average must be greater than equals to 55 and average must be less than 65. Okay, so similar to just now, printf you got a C. Okay, let's do one more condition for D. So average greater than equals to 45 and average less than 55. Then you say printf you got a D. Okay, and for the last condition, which is if average less than 45, then you say you got an F. Okay, so that is the range of checking for the grades. Okay, let me save it first. Okay, so you can see two things here. The topmost is just a single check and the bottom is also a single check. But the rest of it are checking for a range of numbers. Okay, so to do that, you need to have multiple checks here and you need to relate them with some operators. Okay, so in this case, I want both the condition to be satisfied. Okay, in order to get a particular grade. So that is why you use the AND operator. In some other examples, we will be using the OR operator and NOT operator and so on. Okay, so which operator you use to relate the various conditions together depends on the type of things you are checking, what is the requirements, okay, of the program. Okay, so let's run this first before we think of how to improve it further. Okay, so let's run the numbers again. So you can see that when my average is greater than 75, it says you got an A. So let's try another range of numbers slightly lower. Okay, so when my average is 62.67, you say you got a C. Okay, so we can always check back at here. So 62.67 is within this range over here. Okay, I'm greater than equals to 55 and less than 65, so you got a C. Okay, so you can see that the output is correct, okay, based on the logic that we have implemented here. Okay, so what is the improvement right now we can do in terms of performance? Okay, logically everything is correct, okay, but in terms of performance, what can we do? Okay, so when we look at if statements, we must understand that each if statement is checked by itself. Okay, it's a standalone check. So when I have multiple if statements like this, okay, when my code comes to this line, I will check whether this condition is satisfied or not. If it is satisfied, I do this. Okay, I come into the curly braces and execute whatever is there. Whether I'm satisfied or not satisfied, okay, whether this condition is satisfied or not satisfied, I will still carry on to the next if statement and the next if statement and so on. Okay. In some situations, you want to do this intentionally because you may be able to fulfill multiple conditions. But in our scenario, we know that based on the average marks, you are only going to get a single grade. Okay. So in that case, once any particular condition is satisfied, you do not want to waste time doing the rest of the checks. Okay, so that is in terms of efficiency. So how can I improve my code to have this kind of effect? So instead of having multiple if statements, I change it to if, else if, and so on. Okay, so when I do this, okay, an important thing you must remember is for the last statement, I don't need to do any more check. I just say else. Okay, so what am I going to do here? The logic is still the same, except that now, because I change it to a if, else block, the moment a single condition is satisfied and I execute whatever is there in this curly braces, I will skip the rest of the check and go to the end of the if else block. Okay, so that is the advantage of doing it this way. Okay, so the logic is still the same as what we did a bit earlier. Okay, except that now there's an improvement in the efficiency of the code. Okay, so let's compile and run this. So you can see that whenever you make changes, you must compile and run. If you do not compile and run, and if you just say run, you will still be running the older compile code. Okay, so you may not actually be seeing the effects of the change. Okay, so let's enter the marks one. So let's do it again. 65, 71, maybe 66. Okay, so my average mark is 64, and it says you got a C. Okay, again, you may not be able to see any significant change right now, or significant improvement change, because we're not doing any profiling or performance measurement at the moment. Okay, but when you change your code from if multiple if statements to if else, you are sort of allowing the code to be a lot more efficient, because you don't need to waste time doing multiple checks. Okay, when you know that you're only going to fulfill one. Okay, so that sort of wraps up this review question. So you can see that the first step is to declare your variables. Second step, capture the user input and do the necessary calculation. And subsequently, you print out the associated grade, okay, based on what the marks have been entered. Alright, so in future review questions, we will build upon this and add more